Hey guys, it's Onin. Today on Onin's Rite, I want to kind of weigh in on the discussion of the day, which has been inspired by Daniel's little rant about all of the various things in Battle Rite that make no sense, are plain unfair, are stupid overpowered. His rant was, as most people noted, pretty much correct, but worded in a very useless manner. So, the main thing he was worried about was some mechanics, like, for instance, this being a little bit unfair in some way. And I kind of want to go into what, from a design perspective, that means and what can be done about it. So, taking just the most obvious example, do I have the right setup? There you go. So here's one thing people find unfair. You can do this, and you can do that. And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And there's pretty much a good reason for that. It's because, one, this hitbox is just too big. Everyone kind of agrees with that. But the more obvious issue is stun straight up into a 60 damage burst combo. Does that feel fair? It doesn't feel fair. And why is that from a design perspective? So there's two things at play here, and they kind of weigh into the same issue. So first off, the risk reward for this is practically zero. As long as you hit your shield dash, which is super easy, you always get your ulti off. So there's no risk in ever doing this. As soon as you know this hits, you know this hits. There's nothing that works against it. There's no risk, there's a massive reward. And the second issue is tied into the idea of risk. There's no counterplay to this. You simply don't have any openings in between the stun and the heroic charge latching you to space out, to get invulnerable. The only way to escape from this is if one of your allies has a tornado or an other side, or at the very worst a barrier that can absorb some of it. So there is no counterplay for you, there is only hoping that your allies can help you. Which, in a team setting, can sometimes be, excused to just say, this should work unless you're being stopped by your opponents. But I don't really think that's fair enough. And sadly, there are a lot of other examples that follow the same idea, but in a very different fashion. So here we have Sirius, and we all know what his combo is. You do this, 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 and you do 70 damage in just about under a second. And the odd thing about this is that it sounds so easy, like you just stand here and do this, 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 and you can just do that in a game, right? Obviously, it's not that easy. You have to first build up enough energy, you need to not waste your weapon charges, you need to still put out enough pressure to be a relevant hero despite not using your weapon charge, despite saving it up for the burst combo. And you need to do obvious things like this, or obvious things like this, in order to get into people's range. So, unlike the Bako combo that is super easy, free, and highly rewarding, doing something like this as Sirius isn't super free, isn't super easy. But the reward is just still too high. This dealing 70 damage is just too much. The risk is at an okay level. Like, it's always been at an okay level. That's kind of the thing that Sirius is based around. It's the fact that doing this can be risky, but this is a really good reward. Doing this can be risky, but getting another one of these is a really good reward. That's just how the character is based. And it's a bit of a problem with balancing him, since he's such a tightrope in terms of risk-reward, and the amount of nuance that you have to put into balancing to make sure that he doesn't get too risky and therefore unplayable, or too rewarding and therefore too powerful, is really tight, and it's going to be difficult for them to balance. But there's another very obvious problem with this combo right here. And that's this. Or more specifically, this. So this combo works because of the Rite Celestial Cycle. And this is a round 2 Rite. And something that we especially see in the 2s tournaments that are going on now. Especially on NA, we have Serious Shifu or Serious Freya being pretty popular, but some EU teams run it as well. And you could just see in round 1 of any match, Serious is so useless. Maybe useless is a little bit bad, but like you play him for this combo. You also play him because he can do this and because he can heal, but you mainly play him for this combo. And you can't do this on round 1. You can only start doing this on round 2. That is just terrible design. And it's kind of a problem with the Battle Rite system, but it's really not that easy, not that hard to fix. You just have to realize, when you give someone something like this, that just turns a skill that is otherwise so terrible. Like, this skill is just garbage. Look at how far it travels. Look at what it does. 16 damage. That is 2 M1s, or just, you know, one decent cast time ability from any other champion in the game. And it's theirs for 1 second. People never use this for the damage. They never use this for the snare. They very occasionally use this for the distance. Sometimes this is enough to get you out of an AoE that would otherwise hit you. So that's okay-ish. But basically the only reason people use this is to recharge that M1 charge and get that burst damage. So the problem isn't that there is a round 2 Rite that makes this skill overpowered. The problem is that there's absolutely no reason to ever use this before round 1, and therefore you need a round 2 Rite to make this skill worthwhile. It's kind of a Rite at that power level that it would just make the hero too strong if you give it in round 1, especially in pubs. It's like a bit of an issue with like the competitive system that we're playing these best of 9 single map matches that really gives Serious more strength than he should have in a normal game, because this game is balanced around best of 5s. The whole Rite system is designed around best of 5s, and that has the idea that losing your first round because you need this ability to be good is a bad thing for your hero. But in competitive it kind of doesn't matter, because 1 round in the best of 9 is not that big of a difference. So the solution here is obvious to me. Make Prismatic Strike actually good, make Celestial Cycle not that good, and then balance around that situation. And of course, this burst combo just shouldn't really be a thing, honestly. Like, I never knew what the whole point behind these round 3 Rites was. Like, you could choose between an increased weaken duration, which is okay, it's pretty neat. You can get a root, which is like objectively the best one, because no matter what playstyle, when you use this, you want to root people. Like, if you're playing a defensive series, you want to root people to keep them off you. If you're playing an offensive series, you want to root people so that they're standing in place and you can punish them even more together with your teammate. And then there's, for some reason, bonus damage, because they want the burst to be even more ridiculous than it already is. So, like, this is obviously the best one. This shouldn't exist because the burst is already too high, and allowing even more burst is only going to be a balanced nightmare. Anyway, I have a pretty simple solution to how this works. How this should work. This Rite should not exist. Prismatic Strike should kind of do what it does here automatically, but not like this. Not an instant recharge of your weapon. What it should most likely do is simply cut the cooldown down, say, in half. So, I'm not sure exactly how long it takes. I think it's like 6 seconds to charge this thing. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, about 6 seconds to charge the thing full. So have this thing recharge the cooldown by 3 seconds, so that as soon as your orb is on half, then you can start doing this combo. So then it's not a burst combo, but it's a way to get more sustained pressure. You can jump in, get your first weapon slash, then do something else, like healing someone or landing a CC, and then you get your second burst combo. And that's pretty fair, because the thing that makes this feel unfair, this right here, is that it's in the span of a single second. And sure, the situation that you need to find yourself in is risky and is rare enough, but it just feels, from the recipient's point of view, like you just had a 1 second opportunity, a 1 second window where I didn't have my outs, and you clicked 2 buttons and dealt 70 damage to me. That's the thing that feels stupid. Not the fact that he has a combo this potent, but the fact that it takes just a single second lapse in your defenses to get this much punishment. No other character can do that. Give any other character 1 second window of punishment and they'll do half of this. At the very best. Some characters can't even do anywhere close to that amount. So that's how you fix that. Next up we have Juman, which hasn't really seen as much success in tournaments as I've seen. He just got second place in the Battlerec 2v2 EU final, so that's pretty good. But everyone's been complaining about this guy, so it's time to figure out what exactly is the problem here and how you fix that. So the main way people play Juman has 2 very abusive things going for it. One of them is very easy to fix. So we have this Rite, which is supposed to be like, hitting Black Arrow will heal you, therefore making you more sustainable over the course of a game. It does it in the form of a debuff, which is meant to be there probably just to allow you to hit multiple people at the same time, you know? So you can throw an arrow on this guy and an arrow on this guy, and you have 2 people healing you up over time, so you can take a lot of punishment and just get it all back. Sadly, that's not why people pick this Rite. People pick this Rite because it deals 6 damage. And Black Arrow is the skill that you continuously cast as much as possible as Juman. It is your bread and butter, it is practically the only thing you're ever gonna recast. I think, honestly, people are kind of undervaluing this right over here, the recast on Prowl. I think that this is amazing for punishing some melee heroes, although there aren't really that many popular ones in the meta right now, so I can kind of see why not. But it's just, eventually you're able to get this, and you just deal fucking 20 damage with your resettable space. It doesn't make any sense. And then there's the second thing, which is really a combination of mechanics for Juman. So the thing that people in general really hate about this character is that he's super hard to lock down. Because he walks around firing arrows, and then he's gone, and then he's gone again, and then he's gone again. He's got 3 different methods of going immaterial. So the first obvious fix is, I seriously don't understand why Prowl has invulnerability on it. It gives you a lot of movement speed, it allows you to travel through enemies, it sets up a debuff that causes incapacitate on people, you can get a Rite to cast it twice in a row. Why is it also an immaterial? Even worse, you can, here it is, get an duration increase to 1.5 seconds, at which point it's practically better than Fleetfoot. It's slightly less duration, but you get more movement speed and you also get the debuff. It simply isn't balanced. It just doesn't, shouldn't be allowed to do this many things at once. It would be perfectly balanced if it just let you go through people at a high speed without being invulnerable. Because this fast is enough to dodge things manually. You don't need invulnerability to dodge things when you're already running fast enough that projectiles shouldn't be able to hit you. And then the second thing, which I feel still is a little bit unfair, but you can argue that if you take away the immaterial on Prowl, that this is kind of necessary. But I'm okay with Black Arrow being recastable. What I'm not exactly okay with is how fast it is. So you're hitting it once, suddenly something happens and immediately you're immaterial. This cast speed is super fast and it is immediately able to cancel any backswings from other abilities. Mostly because this game just doesn't do global cooldowns for some reason. I think global cooldowns are a better idea than having, you know, this little cooldown over here. But just being able to instantaneously hit this super fast ability at a moment's notice. Sometimes you can cancel, just if you really need to cancel this. Honestly, not that long cast time, M1. It's just so hard to find that little opening where you can hit someone despite him having his immaterials up. Because a good Juman will always have his immaterial up until there is something you actually need to dodge. So that's another example of the risk-reward in just playing Juman in general. There are these battle rites that give far too much reward for something that is just a basic part of his kit. And there is so little risk to playing a Juman this way because you have an instant casting material and a practically instant casting material that cancels anything you're trying to do to immediately make you invulnerable and also dodge you out of the way. It just feels unfair, the fact that he has not one, not even two, but three abilities that both dodge things and make him immaterial and are practically instant cast. You can't read these, you can't find an opening in between. Like, the best you can find is he tries to M2 someone and stands still for a little while. That's about the biggest opportunity you can get to punish a Juman. But even then, oh, it cancels. It just instantaneously cancels. Like, the Prowl doesn't for some reason, but you wind up M2, you want a Black Arrow instead, it auto-casts your Black Arrow, auto-cancels your steady shot. It's just that nice for you. You don't even have to hit the spacebar, it just does it for you. And that feels unfair. And that makes this bloodline just too easy. You get so much damage, you get so much mobility, you get so much invulnerability. How is anyone ever supposed to lock you down and win trades against you? It just doesn't happen. So let's go through some more fixes real quick. So Freya has this. An 0.5 second stun and extra AoE damage when landing your spring against enemies affected by static. So, you hit something, you get a free stun that gives free follow-up. Practically a battle rite that gives you 8 from this, plus 12 from your first M1 that's going to hit, guaranteed, because it's a stun. And all you need to do for setup is hit a single M2 for 23 damage. This shouldn't exist. I don't know why this exists. There was no problem with the one that we had before that just applied a fading snare on hitting your first attack after your space. That was maybe not as good as either of these two, but it had its own role. It had the role of tunneling your healer. And just sticking on someone like butter, which a normal playstyle wouldn't generally want, but sometimes if you know that your enemy Lucy is kind of abusable in the kind of comp that they run, it would have been a pretty good choice. This Rite shouldn't exist. It's just too powerful. It leads to too much free follow-up. Because it's a skill that you already use in this exact way. You don't go in if there's no static on an enemy. But now when you go in, when there's a static of an enemy, you get free damage and a free stun that leads to even more free damage. You do something that you already do, which is the definition of zero risk. And you get free rewards from it. Just off the scale. This shouldn't exist. More on the topic, I honestly think Storm Ace is now overshadowed by how powerful this ability is, but it still shouldn't exist in its current form. So I think the idea of this is fine, but I think it's a little bit too rewarding and there's no risk at all to it. Like, you just pick it and you get it for free. If this had a bit of a cooldown increase, which I think some other rights actually do have that, to getting another ability charge, but at the cost of a slightly higher cooldown, then I think this would be balanced. So I talked about Rizzy Bacco, but I didn't really talk about any fix to this. But to me the fix is rather obvious. The fix to this is obviously just fix this hitbox. Don't make it based off of Bako's own hitbox. Give the ability its own hitbox. And the second thing is something that I've actually asked about since the very start. Like, before this even started being a thing, I felt like Heroic Charge's cast time is just really fast. Just check the difference between doing that and doing, say, this. So, Bako charges faster. He starts stunning from a slightly higher range. And it kind of feels like his audio cue is a bit less obvious than the other ones. So the obvious fix to a combo like this is simply increasing the cast time of a Heroic Charge a little bit. Like, just give people 0.2 seconds of reaction time where they're not stunned yet, which is enough to land like a space, an invulnerability, sometimes even a stun to counter it. And that sounds fair to me. It's okay if this combo is an obvious follow-up, but it's not okay if there is no counterplay. There needs to be some kind of counterplay, and for there to need some kind of counterplay, there needs to be a hole in between the wall slam stun and the Heroic Charge to hit him. So to round this off, I kind of want to give a few examples of some combos that, from a balance perspective and from, you know, the idea of fairness, seem pretty fine to me. As a comparison of like how you can easily do things correctly. So Taya has this, which I have outwardly criticized as being far too defining for her playstyle. Like, everything you do is just about being able to land this combo. But the combo itself feels pretty fine to me. Because just look at how long it takes for you to actually deal the damage. You have to throw your wind bomb, you have to wind up your M2, and there is the hit. So the projectile is not the slowest in the game, but it's pretty obvious. The setup is super obvious because this is the only combo she knows. And the cast time of her boomerangs is long enough that you know exactly when she starts casting them. You have time to hit interrupts with it. You have time to wind up a counter, to space out of there, to see that your ally is trapped in a wind bomb and needs saving. So that makes this fine. The fact that it takes a little while for this combo to hit, and that there are several different ways to counterplay it. Like, the main reason people complained about this kind of combo is because they trance too early and get their trance hit by wind bomb. But as soon as you know the matchup, you save trance until this moment. The moment that you're caught in the wind bomb and she's winding up. There is more than plenty space in between the cast time and the projectiles appearing. You have to cast your trance or your counter or your reflect or whatever you have. And you should just not get hit by this combo unless you have them off on cooldown, and the Taya saw that and waited for that opportunity. So that is fair. Another thing that I think is mostly fair is this combo right here. So this seems similar to the Bako combo in that you hit a setup for a pretty rewarding damage and silence. But the main difference is we've tested this very specifically, and because the cast time on Defiled Blade is 0.35 seconds, and the travel time of Claw of the Wicked is practically instant, it's less than 0.1 seconds, you actually have, depending on the distance that the claw travels, you have at least 0.2 seconds to react to this. Now, the very specific nuance in this is that Claw of the Wicked will interrupt things you have queued when it hits people. So what you need to do is react to the fact that the claw hits you, then wind up a space and use it before he manages to hit his M1 and silence you. And I think almost every character in the game can do this. Some of them need some energy, like Ataya won't be able to escape from this using just her haste speed, that's not gonna get you far enough away. But if she has her EXQ or she has a tornado up, then she can use those and she can escape from this. Practically everyone has something with a cast time of 0.2 or lower that should be able to escape this combo, as long as you react fast enough and as long as you know about this. So that's basically fine, I think. This combo into silence, it might just be too good for the round 1 rights. Like, these two might just not be good enough in comparison with this. But the only thing I changed about that is just either the damage that you get on the Filed Blade or the length of the silence here. I don't think the combo itself needs to be changed in any way. This just honestly feels fine. If you want to see another thing that feels fine, I think basically all the design about Lucy is totally fine. Like, she's the dominant healer right now for a very simple reason. Her throughput is really high, her barrier is really reliable, and she has Clarity Potion. That's kinda it. I mean, the primary reason she suddenly got picked immensely instead of just occasionally is because they increased the cooldown of barrier from 12 seconds to 10, which gives ridiculously high uptime. And in return, they nerfed the dominant healer at that point, Paloma, her other side, from 10 cooldown to 12. So it's kinda obvious if you're giving someone +2 cooldown and the other one -2, then they're kinda gonna switch places. But honestly, the primary reason she's being picked is her healing is really good. Her ulti is a bit better now that it's lethal and does a bit more better damage. But primarily, it's because Clarity Potion is a really good ability. And it's the only offensive dispel in the entire game, which still baffles me. I don't understand why she's the only one with one. Like, I'd understand if they just don't want offensive dispels, because it feels kind of crappy and difficult to play around to just put a barrier on someone and immediately get it dispelled. But they are apparently fine with that mechanic existing, but they only want Lucy to have it. Like, can we just give Eva back a freaking dispel instead of giving her a spell block stun and whatever the fuck this is? Like, just what is this? Who wants this? It's just a rocket. Just deals damage. Who cares? That's not what you play NG for. You play NG for your cool gadgets, like zapping people and flying around the place. That's what you play her for. But no, you get just a rocket. Great. Anyway, that's going off track. So to rehash, I think that some of the major issues in the design of some of the more powerful champions right now is a mismatch in their risk-reward. They just either have far too little risk in some of their baseline combos, which makes counterplaying them too difficult, or they have far too much reward so that there's counterplay available, but in just that single second where the stars manage to align and they manage to land their best combo, you take so much damage that it still feels completely unfair. And this kind of risk-reward mismatch, it's generally pretty easy to fix. You just need to ensure that there's always some kind of window for counterplay, like with the Rukan grip into M1 combo. There's an opening there. You need to know about it, you need to react to it, but at that point it feels fair because it's your fault that you're missing it. It's not his, like, overpowered combo that's hitting you, it's you not having your outs up or you not reacting fast enough. And if that's the case, then it feels fair. That's all you need to do. You need to offer people enough counterplay, or you need to not give too massive of a reward for something that's just a tiny slip up. So that's all for this episode. Feel free to leave your comments below as usual. And thank you for watching.